Hello there, and thanks for joining us on the Thursday edition of Journalist Hangout. I am Kemi Fola Adeyemo. Today on the program, NJC submits reports to President Buhari, declines comment on recommendations against suspended CJN on Ogun. PDP wins Rivers governorship election, legislative elections as well, as INEC finally concludes 2019 polls. Later on the show today, El Rufai's security men save travelers from kidnappers on the Kaduna-Abuja highway. I'll be hanging out today with Wale Adeoye and Asuko James. Journalists Hangout starts now. It's good to have you join us again. Well, the knotty constitutional crisis created with the suspension of Justice Walter Onoge as Chief Justice of Nigeria is about to be untied, it seems. After dismissal of his no-case submission, Justice Onoge has now closed his case at the Code of Conduct Tribunal. And then the National Judicial Council forwarded a report on its review of allegations made by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission against the suspended Chief Justice of Nigeria. This to President Muhammadu Buhari. Well, the NJC declined comment on the recommendations contained in the report, citing the sensitivity of the matter. However, different versions of what the NJC recommended in that report have emerged in several quarters, especially the compulsory retirement of Justice Onoge as the Chief Justice of Nigeria. That would be the premise of our first discussion, gentlemen. Asuko and Wale, you're both welcome. Thank you again for joining us at this time. I'll begin with you, Wale. The court, the tribunal on one hand, the NJC is busy, has been hearing petition after petition on the Onoge, which also includes his successor, Tanko Mohammed. But what do you have to say about this recommendation that it has sent to the president now?
Well, in the first place, the judiciary should be the last hope of the common man. So it gives us a lot of worry if there are serious allegations of corruption against the number one judicial officer. It's a very serious issue. But I think it appears this drama is coming to an end, or has come to an end, with the recommendation made to the president. It is difficult to unfold the content and form of what may have been submitted to the president, but we can make logical deductions. One is that it's unlikely that the former CJ will be coming back to his seat. I don't think that is possible. And I think there have been reports from credible newspapers this morning that the NJC made recommendations that the president should retire him from service. But I think we could have avoided this long chain of intrigues if at the beginning the CJ had resigned from that position. But I think it allowed the whole issue to be politicized. Remember that the Southeast governors asked him not to, South governors asked him not to obey, and it didn't appear, at the first instance. And one was wondering that the South governors, were they his employers? Was he responsible to them or responsible to the Nigerian people? And for the fact that they could take a position, coming from a particular political trend, shows that, they wanted the whole affair to be politicized and ethnicized. And I think that was not good. He also played to that, to that trap. So by and large, I think the CJ himself did not handle that issue very well. Since those allegations were made, as soon as they were made, the normal thing would have been for him to step aside. He would have gained more honor, but he allowed so many things to come in, and then, they were dragging him in the mud. So I think he's leaving that seat with his reputation, with a lot of question marks on his reputation. Also bearing in mind his own personal history. In 1994, there was Justice Esho panel, which would also actually make recommendations to the then military government about certain corrupt judicial officers. And that his name was also mentioned. Though no one could lay his hands on that report
yeah,
now.
right.
The 100 copies, nobody could find them. Even the personal copy of Justice Esho could not be found. But there are reports that, that 1994, this thing panel actually indicted him. So I think it's very unfortunate that he allowed himself to be leaving that seat in a very disgraceful manner. And I think I blame him,
So
in part for the...
that said, Wale, now you have said your own, given your own take now. In the light of all that Wale has said, Asukwa, let's come to you now to get your own understanding of what has happened now. Do you see an end to the whole drama now with this? It's now up to the president. It appears that perhaps the NJC, some say the NJC appears to have washed their hands off him. How do you view it?
Well, I think first, just like Wale said, he shouldn't have gotten to this, state whereby we'll be, trying to see why the #1 judicial officer, will have to either retire, be suspended, or he himself, having a compulsory retirement for himself. But I have looked at all the things, particularly when the NJC recommendation or their statement actually came out. And I said, this is the first time the NJC is not bringing out his own, making his findings, public, and they are also sending it directly to the president, which means the NJC, whether you want to look at it, in any way you want to look at it, is like they are sending their own powers, giving their own powers to the executive, which is the president. It is not the president that actually petitioned, Onege. It was the EFCC, that actually did the petition. And it means that the NJC was supposed to, after the panel has been set up, the findings of the panel should have been made public. The NJC have never seen, you're a lawyer, the NJC has never said, okay, this is our recommendation and we are sending it to Mr. A or Mr. B. So they always make it public.
They willingly release, let go, let the president take over. Perhaps it's because it's the person or it's the office of the CJN.
Yeah, from part of the statement they said, okay, one, which I also agree with them, with the NJC, the case is still in court, which is sub judice,
In other words, they didn't trace the aspect.
Yes, which is the access declaration, declaration case, which is still in court, That is understandable. Then, but what of other matters? Onoge had like 6-count charge, along with it. What did you find out? Did you find out whether he actually collected money or whether he did not declare? Okay, the declaration is the asset declaration. What of others? The petition itself by the EFCC, what did you find out? That is what the NJC should have told Nigerians. Not that they will now move it to the president. Because already the president has suspended Onoge. And it's like the president has already made up his mind on what he wants to do with Onoge.
In other words, I don't want him, let him go and answer to the charges.
So it will be very difficult for us to now say that the NJC, wants Onoge back. Because, you understand what I mean. It will be difficult for us to now sit here and say, the NJC really wants Onoge to come back.
So there may be there may be an extent or a degree of truth now in the theories or in the reports that we have seen in the dailies this morning saying it's not that they want him back. What line they are towing at this point now would be for him to just go on compulsory retirement, but then with his full benefits, right? Soft landing, right. So Wale, in the light of all this now, is that how you two view it, that the NJC gave the president its powers now? Of course, we are not going to ignore the role of the Senate when it has to do with the removal or appointment of the CJN and other justices of the Supreme Court.
What the NJC has done, to my own understanding, is sending perhaps a preliminary report to the president, But that does not mean that that document belongs to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It's a public document. And I expect the media in the next few days to demand for that document, if necessary invoking the Freedom of Information Act. And the Senate may also demand for that report. So if you are submitting that report to the president today, that does not mean that we will not have access to it. We may not have access to that report today, but absolutely it's a public document, and Nigerians have the right to know the content of that document. And I think there's no way the NGC can make it a private affair. You know, we can only make it a private affair today, but in the next few days, it will be, compelled, to release that report to the Nigerian people, because, it's not a secret document, it belongs to Nigerian people. So I think it's just a temporary step the NGC has taken, which cannot sustain the test of time. Nigerians have the right to know what has happened, what the outcome of that report, and the NGO that also wrote out a petition, and the EFCC, they both have the right to have a feedback.
And in any case, it appears that the EFCC, I know that there were times in the past few weeks now when the EFCC's counsel, had to go to the NJC to present its case beyond the petition that it sent to the NJC. A particular report now this morning was said in light of the damning evidence, so to speak, against the suspended CJ, and he himself also, we gather from the papers, also, gave a defense in himself. For example, he was talking about the alleged gifts that he received. Some said about $1.7 million in account of all this. But then, do you see a sense of, as have been alleged, perhaps a protectionist agenda of the NJC against one of their own?
Well, it's always been there. Lawyers tend to protect themselves, but in this case, I think there is a limit to which they can go, because the facts are now in the public domain. Right. Even the account, what is in the account, have been published. So, and Nigerians are asking questions that, what is the source of income of the Chief Justice of Nigeria to have this kind of huge amount in his account? But then, it's just the CJ is just a mirror of the rot in Nigerian judiciary. It's a scapegoat of the corruption, the decadence, the rot that we all know. So I hope this will serve as a lesson to other judges that Nigerians are watching. If the CJ can fall, then it means that magistrates, high court judges should not just think that they cannot come to their turn. So they need to sit up, because if we are talking about corruption, it will be too bad for any country if the judiciary is also corrupt, because that is the only way people can seek redress. And once you have a judiciary that is neck deep in corruption, then all hope is lost for the fight against corruption in Nigeria.
And of course, the tribunal, Asuko, like you no doubt have been following, is progressing with this the asset declaration matter now, which the NJC says it will not dabble in. You were raising an interesting point where you said, what about the other petitions, the EFCC matter here? We're here to know how far from that end now. But one evidence given by the CJN, he calls in his driver. The case appears to have reached a stage where one can start getting ready for judgment in a matter of weeks. Your thoughts there as we delve to the other arm now of this drama?
No, it's sub judice. We can't.
We can't. You're right.
We can't discuss that here, because I can only make my own. I don't want them to subpoena me in court, So, but the thing is, the case they have presented, I thought they were going to bring more witnesses, but unfortunately, it happened to be just one person, which is the chief driver, who also brought forms, the asset declaration form of 2010, and from the case at hand, it's supposed to be the case is that, you did not declare immediately you were sworn in, so it means if you were sworn in March 2017, he should have, declared his asset, all his assets, that same March or the next day, or based on the number of time the CCB would have given him to come and do the declaration, which he did not do. But I just want to leave that one, because it's the court that will now decide. The tribunal will decide
right. It's up to the courts. Right,
but as it stands, because back to the NJC, because it's the NJC that is bringing us here now, and the NJC, I keep saying it and I'll say it again, they have to make that their recommendations. They have made their recommendations to the president, which to me is still somehow. They are supposed to make it public. because the EFCC too, does it mean the EFCC who brought the petition will now go to the president and say, Mr. President, we need to know the recommendations that of the NJC. And with the way it's going, it will even be difficult for the president to remove the CJN, because Section 297, I had to even bring the constitution here, right, so that,
right.
Section 297,
that's absolutely fantastic.
Says that a judicial officer shall be removed from his office or appointment before his age of retirement, except in the following circumstances. In the case of a Chief Justice of Nigeria, President, then they listed all, which are all federal, justices and judges. Now, that can only by the president acting on an address supported by 2/3 majority in the Senate. If the president wants to now remove the CJN, which is Onoge, he needs 2/3 majority of the Senate. And as it stands in this 8th assembly, if he wants to remove him now, it's not going to be possible, because Saraki is still the Senate president. And the 9th assembly, if they move on to the 9th assembly,
June,
which is in June, I'm not sure the APC, with what is going on, can even remove him. Because even they have let me say the max, they have six senators, right?
Still on the game of numbers.
Yeah, because it's going to be 2/3 majority. So it means that the president will still have to go cap in hand, begging the opposition for him to remove Onoge.
So we are talking about a tough.
This is now a it's going to
battle.
Be tough, So it's a two-way thing. The president will have to stoop for him to conquer, or he's going to maybe make it like a rough fight. They have to make sure that they cut Onoge to pieces, which they're already doing. So it's left for Onoge to decide. If you want his reputation to still be at stake, maybe he can leave, and then just like you are saying, or what the papers
even
are
though
already
he stands
saying.
suspended.
Yeah, stands suspended.
But
for him to come back, it will be difficult, like I told you. The president will not, because the president has already made up his mind. For him to have suspended him and the allegations against him, forget it, Mr. President. The president that we know will not bring him back.
And then, that said, but Wale, there's also this, because right now what we have before us are options, possibilities, what ifs. We don't know for certain yet. Eyes are on the president now to say, or if the NJC would, we don't know whether there's a number of days now or time with the president before he can reveal the details of that report. But then there is also the possibility of, if indeed there's a mandate or a demand on Justice Onoge to compulsorily retire, what will happen to the trial at hand, to the cases that could come up, further cases that could come up before him? Do you see that happening with the progress that has, been reached? With it's like, I cannot be distracted. That's for the tribunal, of course. But do you see that happening?
Well, I think justice is two-way traffic. The most important one is justice to the society. Most Nigerians want to know the outcome of this case. So even if they ask him to leave that stage and he complies, we still want to see the logical end of the case in court. It's in the interest of Nigeria. It's in the interest of the Constitution. It's also in his own personal interest. And Nigerians are really watching, because if you sweep this issue under the carpet, it means that the law is meant for two people. There are two laws for two people, the rich and the poor. So if somebody can steal a goat and you can put him into 1 year imprisonment, then the CJ, as far as the law, Nigerian Constitution is concerned, his right is the same with the right of any ordinary person. So for me as a person, and so many Nigerians like that, they want to see what will be the logical end of this case. So Nigerians are watching to ensure that we do not sweep this case under the carpet. If he's guilty, he has to pay for it. But if he's not guilty, then the law has to set him free. But they can't sweep it under the carpet.
But then we know how much this case generated, not only national, but concern beyond the country. With the way this case is going, with the way the investigation is going, as some had even said, why didn't the president or why didn't NJC come in from the onset? This intervention now, there seems to be something fundamentally wrong with this investigation, and the fact that the NJC appears to have, concluded the matter doesn't, and the manner in which it even ended it doesn't even seem to correct the ills or the foundational error in this case.
Kemi, now the danger that is involved in this move by the NJC is that it's like to your tent, O Israel. Maybe they don't understand, because by the time, what most lawyers, will be looking at, okay, if I have any issue, will the NJC be able to give me that backing? You understand?
That's for the judge.
That's for the judge. Will they give me that backing? If they don't, with what they have done, it shows that the NJC itself is going to be, most people might even disregard whatever recommendation or whatever sanctions that the NJC will bring up in future. So, and that is why I said that they would have by themselves, formed that protectionist, in quote, body which they have for the judges or for the justices. Even if you have recommendations to sanction, they would have still said, okay, fine. They would have still said, okay, we have found that you are guilty of this, but this and this and this is what we are recommending. There's nothing bad in them coming publicly to say that, so that it becomes a deterrent to others. But now that they have done this, they have, put their powers in the hands of the executive, and which is very, very worrisome. It's worrisome, because in future, Kemi, what we are saying, somebody will refer back to the NJC, that the NJC did not do its job. You understand? They would refer back to this same case.
Because now there's a thin line, and of course, while each arm of government, enjoys a level of independence. The beauty of the system is that, of course, like it's basic that, okay, we check each other now, among the three arms. Yes, that aspect that Asukwo has mentioned appears to be dividing the polity right now, whether it appears to be a self-usurping, so to speak now, of my own powers as the NJC to decide on the matter that is clearly within my purview.
Yeah, the NJC, like if you look at the case of Ayo Salami, the NJC took a decision, even though it was political. We all knew that
but they made it public.
But they made it public. Nigerians got to know what happened, and it was a case of witch hunting. In the case of Justice Ayo Salami, and we all knew how they came up with the report. And I think that had to do with Sokoto State governorship election, that the then CJ was alleged that he wanted to influence the constitution of that panel. Yeah. And that report was made public. And there were, the NJC also set up another panel, another committee, which also exonerated, the Justice Salami. But all the reports that were made by those committees were not submitted to it. They were public documents. So I think Nigerians want to know the content of that report, and it's also a challenge for Nigerian journalists that we need to make that demand. Even if it means invoking the freedom of information, we need to get that document, and I believe Nigerian journalists will do that in the next few days.
And end the suspense.
Yeah, there are about 5 people in that committee, so there's no way they can hide it forever. Nigerians need to know, because by the time you begin to take the report to president, and then it could be doctored. So we want to know what is the recommendation of the NJC, and then in what way is going to serve the cause of justice.
Asukwo, a final take from you. EFCC has also had a tough battle, on its hands in court, having to prove cases beyond reasonable doubts. And of course, there's also the defense of the suspended CJN, that those gifts you said I collected ahead of my daughter's wedding, were for my daughter's wedding, and not by lawyers, so to speak, who had cases in court. And so I didn't do anything wrong.
But it's not the first time that the EFCC will go to the court, and then they will boggle the whole thing, But right now, in terms of the EFCC, if they have evidence, substantial evidence against the suspended CJN, because they have to bring it out. But from what we have seen and from the CJN, from the CCT trial, you can see that the evidence were not even as weighty as we thought.
So they were not even what we saw in at a point where it was
exactly,
flooding everywhere.
Maybe in some other aspects, like I said, maybe in some other aspects, the CJM might have faulted himself, somehow. But if it's based on evidence by the EFCC, I'm not sure that they'll be able to look at it from that perspective.
And right, like in the courts now, also before the NJC, now the very powerful NJC now, it still lies on the EFCC to prove its case beyond reasonable doubt. Well, still to come on Journalists Hangout, PDP wins Rivers governorship legislative elections as INEC finally concludes 2019 polls. That's in a moment. Stay with us. Well, after a long process, and now the 2019 general election has been concluded. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, concluded the process. It began on February the 23rd with the announcement of the results of the governorship and assembly elections in Rivers State on Wednesday. According to the results announced by INEC, PDP's candidate and the incumbent governor Nyesom Wike won the governorship poll. He polled 886,264 votes to beat the AAC's Bio Kumabo Awara, who polled a distant 173,859 votes, a rather wide margin. On this note, now that INEC has finished elections, how do you view it? There had been concerns over the situation in Rivers. They had a second chance, and see how it played out.
Well, it's a good thing that it ended this way and not the other way around. It would have been appalling if it had gone the other way, that Wike did not win this election. Because ab initio, if you look at the build-up to the election, the APC had no candidate in the election. But even before then, about 2 years before the election, you could see that the APC was having a lot of internal contradictions. And the heavyweights in Rivers State, people like Sergeant Awuse, the former governor Odili, even Omeha, cousin to Amechi, they were all, sympathizing with Wike. So I look at Rivers State and I cannot see any big figure behind Amechi.
Okay.
So I think the APC did not handle Rivers State very well. And that's why when you see the end product, it was a crushing defeat for the Amechi group. The difference is 712,405. It's one of the widest in the country. And I think this confirms the overwhelming dominance of PDP in Rivers State. Attempts were made to manipulate the process, but I think this has proved, the outcome of this election has proved that PDP remains very strong in Rivers State. And I think for some time to come, unless there is a change of balance of realignment, I think the Amechi group, it will be very difficult for them to reclaim Rivers State back, because he was governor for 8 years. And if at the end, you're also minister for about 4 years, but you could not make overwhelming, remarkable impact, with your party. Your party even could not even produce a candidate. It's a big shortfall for the APC in Rivers State. So it shows that they should just leave that state for Rivers State, for PDP, and probably go back to the drawing board, go and realign with people that they have hurt, try to deal with the internal contradictions, the conflict within the party, and to see maybe in the next election they can improve on their performance.
Even the results, say it all. Obiakpo, where Governor Wike comes from, he won that resoundingly.
Yes, yeah.
And in Equere, the local government of former
Out of the
Governor
23 local
Amechi,
governments, only one
No, two.
that
or two where it was defeated.
No,
Oyinbo.
yes,
That the
Oyinbo
AAC
and Akuku Toro.
Okay.
that the AAC
That,
won.
that was
Asuko,
able
is
to-
that how you also call it too? A need for the APC, in fact, for former governor and now Minister Amechi now to go back, realignment. Some have said blame taking. Some have said just go back home, go back to your base and try and sort all this out.
If Kemi, the South, they eat, they breed, and they sleep with politics. And their major party there is the PDP. You can't take the PDP out from their brain or from their main brain. And it's always very difficult when you want to try and remove, that from their head. In Akwa Ibom, it's the same thing. In Bayelsa, it is the same. In Rivers, it's even worse, because they started with the PDP and they have continued with that tradition in all these states that I've mentioned. It is only, even in Delta too, it is only in Edo State that the dynamics actually changed. Edo is, some part is PDP, some part is APC. But in Rivers, it is PDP. And what the APC would have done, far back would have been for them to consolidate and merge and make sure that they are united. If you go across these South states, they have one internal crisis or the other. And all the internal crises which the APC is battling with in these states are all caused by those who are federal ministers or former serving senators or senators who are, trying to come back or become lords. They are never united. In Akwa Ibom, it is the same. Akpabio trying to go to from leaving PDP going to APC, it became a very big problem until it got to the election day. In Bayelsa, we had Timi Silva and Eniken. In Rivers, it was even worse because the APC was not even on the ballot. So the PDP actually cashed in on that. Apart from them being the sole proprietor, let me use that word, of those states, the sole proprietor of those states, they decided to also, they sat down and watched how these people, the opposition, will come and take the power from them. It won't be easy. If you are going to a battle, you have to be united. In Rivers, that was what happened. In fact, it took Amechi some days. Most of the APC people didn't know that it was the AAC that they were supposed to go and vote for. Most of the APC supporters didn't know.
Yeah,
it was just like this, like a flash. Because at some point, we heard that it was supposed to be the Accord Party governorship candidate for them to just, back, and then from there...
We are looking at a scattered, a rather scattered now campaign at a point.
Exactly.
At the point,
even I remember Tony Cole was still campaigning, thinking that he would win the case in court. Magnus Abe was also there somewhere, also doing the same thing, So they just went to that battle on a divided. They didn't even have a thought process. Everybody just wanted to do his own thing. Amechi will be one place doing his own with Tony Cole. Magnus Abe will be one place doing his own.
So a formidable front
was not formed.
Was what was lacking, had been established here. But then let's also talk about the bloody aspect of the battle in Rivers State. And the governor said as much when he was accepting his victory yesterday. Lives lost unnecessarily. Yeah. The average Rivers resident appears to be war we're in now, so to speak, about, how that elections cannot, pass without violence erupting. And we saw that play out. We also saw that play out as reported in the papers yesterday. The path to reconciliation, to peace and justice for the victims, what would it be like?
I think Rivers says it's a peculiar case. And it's been like this for a very long time. Each time there's going to be election, it's always about, it's just like going to war. And I blame the political leaders. It's not the people. Because if you have the interest of the people in your mind, I mean, you must consider the fact that going to election, the sanctity of human life should be the most important thing. And it's so unfortunate that each time there's election and 10, 15 people are shot dead, you expect the governors to set up judicial inquiry to arrest those that are involved. Nothing happens. They always have a lot of kangaroo. They will set up this commission, but nothing comes out at the end of the day. It means that the perpetrators of this violence, they have the backing of very influential and rich personalities. So I think it's not a good narrative coming out from Rivers every time. And we hope that the state government and the civil society organizations, including even the federal government, we open a new chapter. We want to put an end to these strings of violence, so that each time election is coming, we will not be preparing to be digging graveyards. It's really not a bad, it's an extremely bad story coming out from Rivers all the time. Just because there has not been justice for those that have been killed. Because when people killed fellow human beings and nothing is done, they are emboldened to repeat the same action in subsequent elections. So we hope that we'll be able to take up this case, that those people that were killed, even those soldiers that were seen, we saw the video, that, everywhere, where those soldiers, something must happen to them. Who brought those soldiers to Rivers State? Who are they? From which barracks? So I think we should not allow this thing to go, even though the winner has been declared. There must be justice for those that have been killed. There must be justice for the people of Rivers State.
I'm talking about the level of insecurity before, during the elections now. We hope the narrative will change now that the elections have been concluded. Asuku, it got so to the point where Governor Wike said the election or the contest in itself wasn't against the APC, but the contest which the party fought, of course, and won was against INEC and security agencies in the state. Is that how you see it in the absence of a formidable opposition in the person of APC? We saw the security operatives, many have condemned the actions of some security forces in Rivers State during the polls, of course, now. But is the governor being dramatic in this, or was it really as he said it was?
He was a major contender in the battle. So from the videos that we also saw on social media, it shows that there were some plans, to manipulate the results one way or the other, either to favor one particular political party and they wanted to do everything, and that's why they were sending in all the security operatives. Some of these. The other thing in this election, particularly the election that is in the South, is some security operatives that we think they are security operatives. Some of them are not. They might be thugs who they would have even sewn uniforms for.
Right.
You understand? So that is why sometimes once I see those videos, it is left for the military authorities to say, oh, these guys were actually in this. That is why we are saying that they should be prosecuted, so that we know.
And like he said,
yes,
from which barracks?
From which
how
barracks?
How difficult would it be to trace
who went to
where they came from?
You understand? Because we know that everybody, once it comes to election in the South, is like war. So everybody wants to do everything for them to, win the election. So if we know that, like Wike is saying, it has evidence that actually INEC tried to manipulate the results. And they were not just alone, but the military or the security operatives also wanted to join in making sure that he does not return as governor. So it is now left for INEC to decide that in the next election, who and who should actually man or go to Rivers, a state like Rivers. And he will not be killed though, because that's another thing. Because there's no election that you will do in Rivers. It's becoming like a normal thing now. Where once you send somebody there, somebody will have to be killed, you know, and things like that. So they have to, the INEC will have to look for a way, whether first will have to go to Rivers, there will have to be a serious stakeholders meeting, all aggrieved parties, if there are aggrieved parties, political parties that are not happy with the situation, elections should not be conducted in Rivers till we know that the situation is calm and peaceful, because it is.
So you're saying it's for the case of Rivers, now we can separate.
We can separate Rivers. See, let me tell you the states we can separate. The Rivers and Bayelsa, Delta, all those states. We can separate them and
focus on them.
So that we'll focus on them. We can have this staggered election. It's just my thoughts, you know. Because once it comes to elections, it's always very crazy in those states. Akwa Ibom is even more peaceful. You know, we didn't hear of anybody killed, but we heard that, you know,
there were attacks, there were molestations, journalists,
and that, you know, and journalists were attacked and that, you know. And there's always some level of, you know, sanctity to human life in Akwa Ibom. But other states in the south, as they will say, they know the same.
And like we know, elections don't just occur now. You must have had years to, you know, plan ahead. The path now, or the healing process for Rivers, some have said it's cliche. Every winning governor will say, okay, I'm extending the hand of reconciliation, or let's just, you know, bury the hatchet and move on. But then people have said it's now a test. Let us see whether these people will bury selfish interests and, you know, focus on one thing, healing the state, you know, reconciling. It's all for the good of the state, after all.
When people are driven by personal interest, it's always very difficult to reconcile. But if you are propelled by the interest of your people, reconciliation should be the cheapest thing for you to achieve. But when it's all about, I want power for the sake of power, to intimidate my opponents, to harass my opponents, and also to make personal fortunes, then in that kind of case, when someone is sitting, another party is sitting on the fortunes of the state, there is no way there can be reconciliation unless that person is forced out. So, but if it is about the interest of the people, the two parties should sit together and even debate about how to move that state forward, debate about the degree of violence. Because even when there are no elections in Rivers State, it's always very tough. You know, crime has increased. You know, street crimes, courtism. And you see, this has not always been the history of Rivers people. Rivers State, we used to talk about Port Harcourt as a garden city. It used to be the most beautiful city in this country. You know, very serene, peaceful. So at a particular time in history, you know, a cabal political class emerged and attempted to dominate, to change the narrative of the people of Rivers. So we can go back to that history where the Niger Delta used to be very peaceful, where you can go to Niger Delta in the night and walk free. Because this was not how Rivers State was created. What you are seeing, the violence, were products of people's actions. You know, private individuals who wanted power at all costs. So we can identify these individuals, sit down together, and ensure that we reclaim the flaunting fortunes of this beautiful state to the benefit of all of us.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's been said now of the level of debt, the humongous amount of waste littering the streets in Port Harcourt. I mean, but then, of course, we don't know what the AAC would say. They seem to have been the closest contender so far. Whether they would, you know, go on to question this, they've all been talking tough. But about the mandates of Governor Wike, now re-elected, what the average Port Harcourt resident wants, what he must do, you know, to boost the welfare of his people.
Apart from all these deaths that have been happening, you know, in Rivers, if you call or you speak to an average Rivers resident, he will tell you that Wike has been, you know, building roads, making sure that infrastructure are being, you know, put in the right places, you know, and So you can't take that away from him. But you can do all these things if there is no security of lives. You are just building those roads for nothing. The average Rivers person, the average Rivers youth needs to be employed. They need to be employed. It's not that somebody is working in the bank and you can't even go sleep with your two eyes in Port Harcourt. Then why are you the governor? You understand? So what he should do, just like you just said, is for total reconciliation. I know when Amichu used to be there, there was a time that Port Harcourt was very peaceful. As in very, very peaceful. You could go out at night and go clubbing. And when I mean out, go clubbing and come back. But right now you can't do that. When once it's like 5 o'clock, people are rushing home. You know, so the governor
talking about a volatile
situation
area.
in your area. And you know, in the Rivers, your streets, the thugs in your street are different from the ones in the other street. So every time they will be clashing. So the best thing for the governor to do is to ensure that there is peace, so that investors can come to Rivers. Rivers is fertile, you know, so that everybody will be employed.
And like Governor Wike said, enough is enough now. He does it. It's saddening to see Rivers always making the news. Of course,
for the wrong
leading
things.
for the wrong reasons. That said, we'll continue to pray that Rivers and indeed the rest of the country is safe for all. To Kaduna State now, where Governor Nasiru El-Rufai is never far from grabbing the headlines. Recently, the social media was agog with rumors that the convoy of the governor was involved in a road accident. And then on Wednesday, the convoy of Governor El-Rufai ran into a gang of criminals and foiled an attempted kidnapping of motorists along that that highway now. That's the Kaduna-Abuja highway. Security operatives attached to the governor engaged the criminals who fled into the forest, and then he directed that some of the wounded travelers be rushed to the nearest hospital for treatment. I mean, the narrative, it's good though, but the narrative could have, been better, gotten better commentations if the bandits had been caught.
Yes, I think that Abuja-Kaduna highway, which is about 164 kilometers, is one of the most dangerous highways in West Africa. Kidnapping, killings happen every day. I passed that, route last year on 2 occasions, and you always feel like jumping out of your skin because of the stories we hear from fellow travelers. One thing should strike us about what happened. That it happened in the afternoon, and I think around 3:45 p.m. You see, if the governor was not there, there would have been, maybe nobody will even report it.
Exactly.
It would have just been
It would
another
have just
case.
been another case. Nobody will report it. So what the lesson I think the governor should learn now, that look, this thing you have seen it with your eyes, so you don't even need any special security report to know that people are passing through hell on that road. He was lucky that probably he had about 20 security men. If those guys were heavily armed with submachine guns, it would have been a different story. And there are different pockets of armed groups. He was lucky that those that were with light weapons, because there have been stories where you go to that highway, you see people with submachine guns firing. It's an heroic effort that security men. But beyond that, we should look at the other ways, the consequences. Had it been those people who are better armed, ambassadors, professors of law pass through that road, journalists pass through, and no life is more important than the other. So I think this should gear up the governor to know that, look, something has to be done on that highway, because he has seen it physically. Good enough. It was not armed, but it could have been the other way around. So something should be done, and it's not only that Kaduna-Abuja highway alone. Most highways, Lokoja and Abuja, the same thing. Zaria, Kaduna, the same thing. Taken over by bandits. Sometimes Lagos, Ibadan too. It's assuming that
In fact,
told
it
us.
seems
So,
it's that's actually the norm now.
yeah, so the story is that our
area.
highways are not safe.
And then we saw the governor.
If they can do this in broad daylight, what would they do in the night?
If you have to, if one has
Travel
to
in the
take
night.
that necessary trip
Yes.
down that axis, we saw the governor El Rufai now, being reported, taking it upon himself to alert, oncoming travelers. Okay, you guys should just stop. And well, like he has said, it's truly commendable, and who knows what would have happened if he hadn't intervened. Atuko, he has seen it happen now. And days before, he actually had a meeting with the top security chiefs, still on the issue of securing that notorious area. How do you come in here?
No, I think first it's commendable that the governor actually ran into, that particular situation so that he can see what people are going through firsthand, and he also make sure that ordered that the injured be treated, which is good and commendable. But it will be more commendable if that particular axis is also safe and secure. I remember last year also, I was reading a particular newspaper where they were telling us the experiences of people who travel, the travelers, that if you have, if you are using a luxury car, those who are using luxury cars are the easy targets. And what they now did was, if you are traveling along that route, what you do is you change your clothes, you look
Like
a
a
rag
regular
tag,
person.
like a regular person. And then even the kidnappers now knew that, okay, that is a
Another
latest trick.
trick.
And they started standing right in front of the highway to stop, buses and all
search.
that and search. They can even search your phone, to know who are the caliber of people you are calling and things like that. And then from there, they will kidnap you. I also heard that most of the bandits coming to that area are the ones that are suffering from, the Zamfara is getting hot. So they are moving towards that area because nobody seems to be talking about the Kaduna-Abuja highway. So the government will have to find a way to make sure that they beef up security in that region. Thankfully, yesterday or 2 days ago, the police as well as the Air Force, they met with the DSS. They met on how they can tackle the situation in Zamfara, the bandits in Zamfara, and along that highway. So we want it to be quicker so that the Air Force will be able to use their new geo-intelligence system, to know, okay, these are people who are, maybe they are bandits, they are coming from one particular, then the police will be able to do the groundwork. So if we can have that interagency collaboration, perhaps that route might be very safe. Because right now, most people are also using the rail. But there are some people that they are not confident about the rail. They like
travel by road.
By road, so that they will be able to see so many things and buy things. And there are some people like that, they like that kind of tour. So the governor will have to find a way to make sure that the police, the Air Force that have met now, as well as the DSS, the security is beefed up around that area. We want to see people who have been arrested and prosecuted. They've been doing, I know police have been saying that they've arrested some few people, but we want more. Because people cannot be injured just taking a trip from one particular point to the other, and you're not safe.
And of course, he also won another term, Governor El Rufai. Like has been said, we've seen the situation, how insecurity appears to be the norm, with security forces, striving to ensure that this is not the narrative attached to states like Kaduna, Zamfara, Sokoto, Katsina. Even the homestead of the president has also had its own sad woes to tell. I mean, but there's this talk about this interagency partnership now. How crucial do you think it is? How lacking is it at the moment?
Unfortunately, in Nigeria, policing is seen as a kind of property owned by the government, that the people are not stakeholders. And that's why it's very difficult to source information from the people. There is no crime that is committed that there will be some people, in fact, the biggest custodians of information are the ordinary people on the street.
Exactly.
So if the Nigerian government can have an effective network of information gathering system, it will be very easy to track down criminals. When you are buying a SIM card, they take your fingerprints. So that's why you see that abroad. Look at those guys that stole in United Arab Emirates. Within 24 hours. All you just need to do is to collect the fingerprints, take it to laboratory, put it on computer.
And their details.
Then the details comes up.
Around.
But here, people commit crime. We don't have, we cannot profile them. We don't have any information on them. So, no matter how many aircraft you buy, APC, armored personnel carrier, BB vehicles, if you don't have an effective intelligence networking system, there is no way you can tackle crime. So we need to that
invest in technology.
Kaduna is not a tropical forest.
Exactly.
It's savannah. So it shouldn't be easy to monitor them through satellites and then have a data for them so that when there's a crime somewhere, you know the right place to go to pick up those criminals.
All right, gentlemen, that is our cue now to wrap up today's edition. Some food of thought there as have been dished out by gentlemen Asukwo James and Wale Adoye. We appreciate your analysis. Of course, the burden continues to be high, even as now that the elections are over, it's time for everyone elected to get to work and deliver all that is needed in the country at this time. That's Journalist Hangout for today. Another episode awaits you tomorrow, and watch Journalist Hangout on other platforms showing on your screen at the moment. It's on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Send feedback to us. Journalist Hangout at tvcnews.tv. I am Kemi Foladeyemo. Thank you very much for watching. Bye for now. God bless Nigeria.